Happy Thursday and welcome to the Colby Daniels podcast presented by Artisan Botanicals in Midwest City. Check out their line of natural medicine products, including CBD, Kratom, and the new Delta 8 capsules. When you order online at abotanicalcompany.com, use the discount code ColbyShow, COLBYSHOW, discount code ColbyShow to save 15% off your online order. So again, check it out. If you have any questions about their products and how they can benefit your life daily, give them a call, 405-458-9699. That's 405-458-9699. They are more than happy to answer any questions you may have and to help educate you on how these products can help your life on a daily basis. So again, 15% off when you order online with the discount code ColbyShow at abotanicalcompany.com. All right, so we have big news, obviously, in the basketball world. James Harden traded out of Houston to the Brooklyn Nets. Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and James Harden. This, I think, is going to be as fascinating as any trio we've seen in the NBA, and that's not necessarily saying that it's a good thing. But I think when you consider the off-the-court issues that may happen with this group, I'm just really excited to see how it plays out. And ultimately, I think just from a basketball standpoint, to see how those three guys play together and maybe sacrifice for each other. So that, I think, is really interesting, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. And then UFC takes a little break. Monster year in 2020 when everybody else shut down. Dana White and the UFC trucked forward, and they hit it out of the park. They hit a home run in 2020, so much so, in fact, that they are broadcasting their first fight in 2021 on ABC Saturday afternoon. So, I mean, it's a massive deal for the UFC to be on network television Saturday afternoon. I'm really excited about this fight card. I'm really excited about 2021 for the sport. So my buddy Will Brewer, who is a former intern at the radio station and is also a big UFC fan, and a guy that used to cover the NBA as well, going to join me in a moment, and we'll talk about the Harden stuff, the Harden, Durant, Kyrie stuff, and then get into the fight card on Saturday. And we've set up a pick'em of sorts for the UFC cards every single week and a point system, so it's going to be a lot of fun. But that's coming up on today's episode of the Colby Daniels podcast with Will Brewer. Will Brewer, what's going on, my man? It is 2021. The last time we spoke was right before the final card of 2020. How's it going, man?
Well, it's going good, but now we're on this week, and there's a lot going on this weekend. So now I'm elevated from good to great. I'm doing great now, man.
We got to fight week.
Yeah, we got the fight week. 3 weeks off. I was kind of, in a little lull. There's some good stuff that happened, but now that it's fight week, man, it's just a whole new energy.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm kind of torn because I missed having fight cards on the weekend, and at the same time, it kind of gave me a little bit of a break from not having to pay attention to both the UFC and college football. So when we have all these bowl games, and especially the college football playoff games and all that, it was kind of nice to be able to just completely focus on that for a couple weeks. But I certainly, as soon as those were over, I'm like, all right, I'm ready to get back on a roll, ready for the UFC to jump back into things. And certainly on Saturday, we've got a big one with obviously a lot, considering that it's going to be broadcast on ABC. But before we get to that, so we'll tell everybody about what we're going to do with our UFC picks and this contest we've got going on. But instead of finding a different guest today, based on the news that happened yesterday, I just thought you and I would cover this as well, because you used to cover the NBA. So it's not like you are not a basketball guy either. So yesterday, James Harden is finally traded from the Houston Rockets to the Brooklyn Nets. I said that I thought he would have been traded earlier in this process if he hadn't made this thing such a public issue. I think NBA owners and GMs right now are in such a weird predicament where they are fighting this idea that players have all the power and can opt out of these long-term contracts with 2 or 3 years left on their deal. So I honestly believe if James Harden had kept everything behind closed doors, maybe something happens a little bit sooner. But the fact that he kind of blew it up on the outside, I kind of felt made them more stubborn in terms of making this happen and the whole process to kind of, flex their muscles a little bit.
Right, and talk about forcing your way out of a place. I mean, we knew that Houston was kind of in a weird spot because everyone was wanting to leave and everyone was kind of worried about playing time, all this different stuff. But James Harden, after he requested his trade, he's not showing up to training camp. And then when he does show up, he's 20 pounds heavier. He's not even wanting to, participate in any of the practices. So, I mean, he took it to another level. And then I remember watching that Lakers game, and he just looked disinterested, man. It was not the James Harden of old. I mean, when he would drive into the paint, he wasn't trying to look for contact or anything. He was letting Anthony Davis just throw his shot off the backboard. I've never seen that happen consecutively to James Harden. So, I mean, he forced his way out, and probably you're right. It could have happened sooner if he just would have handled it behind closed doors in a more professional manner. But I mean, he just used measures that were very unprofessional. I mean, and eventually he got what he wanted, but you would have liked to see it happen in a more professional manner.
Yeah, the league is in trouble to some degree, I think, simply because guys, how many guys have we seen now that have multiple years left on their deals and they're just like, I'm done, I want out. And what are you supposed to do at that point, right? I mean, it's a tough situation for the sport overall, and I don't know what the answer is. I don't know that there's a good answer to try and solve that situation, but yeah, I think it's become such a situation now where nobody knows the answer that I think if you blow it up, it's going to become a I have more power than you type of situation, and I think it just stagnates the whole process to a degree.
Right. I think the one thing that's going to have to happen, I mean, the NBA and the Player Association, they're going to have to sit down and really just try to get a hold of this whole situation. I mean, you see these players signing for these super max deals, and then 2 years into them, they're like, I want out, when the team isn't where they want them to be. And granted, some of these guys are looking for their legacies. They're looking out for their primes and stuff. You only have so many years to maximize your prime years. But at the same time, you sign a 5-year super max deal, or whatever. You have to honor that. You gave that commitment. You need to honor that. And, we saw with Anthony Davis. Oh, Anthony Davis, at least he played out his year. But we saw it with Paul George. We saw it with James Harden. I mean, and a lot of these superstars are going to look at that and be like, well, this guy did that, so I'm going to be able to do it too. So, loyalty is a hard quality to find this day and age. But, if you're not willing to, be committed to your team, don't sign the Supermax deal.
Yeah. Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I get it. Teams aren't loyal to players. They can trade players whenever they feel like there's a better deal out there. So it's not like I'm anti-player in this situation. In fact, I think more often than not, I'm pro-player when it comes down to players versus, ownership and front office. But I think just in terms of the wellness, the well-being of the sport, it's a slippery slope to have guys demanding out of contracts with multiple years left on their deal. And, again, I credit Houston, I think, for handling this in a really good way and for getting what they got for James Harden as well. I was shocked to see the return when you consider the draft picks, the pick swaps, and ultimately they end up with Victor Oladipo as well. I can't imagine a scenario where they were going to even get close to what they got.
And you see a lot of these teams with their offers, what Houston wanted, and a lot of them, they kind of were backing off. And with what James Harden was providing the team, what they got was absolutely the best case scenario. You trade for Karis LeVert at first, and you're kind of like, Karis LeVert, John Wall, Boogie, Christian Wood, But then when they trade for Victor Oladipo, you're like, oh, okay, I really like this, because Oladipo, he wanted out of Indiana, and it was a complete curveball to me. When I saw that Oladipo was traded, I was like, wow, that came out of nowhere. And then when you look at the makeup of Houston, I think Victor Oladipo fits in perfectly with the guys that are there. So, I mean, Houston definitely got the best case scenario for what they were dealing with. All those pick swaps, all those first-round picks, plus a guy like Victor Oladipo, who is a former All-Star. You can't get much better than that.
Well, let's talk about this from the Nets' perspective real quick. I don't really know how to feel as far as Brooklyn goes. There's no denying that from a talent standpoint, James Harden, Kyrie Irving, and Kevin Durant is a force to be reckoned with. But in terms of how it actually looks on the basketball floor, if all three guys end up playing together, which is a serious question for me. Kyrie is kind of a basket case at this point. But how do you feel about the trade in terms of the Nets and what this does for them and their championship hopes?
It all boils down to like who is the one controlling the offense, because you have Kyrie, who is a ball dominant player. You have James Harden, who's been like first or second in usage for the past 5 or 6 years, coming off of averaging 30 plus points. These are two guys who are virtually, in my eyes, the same player. And KD, he's such a great player that he's going to be able to get his shots. He's going to be able to get good looks without demanding a whole possession. You can kind of just throw it to him, and he'll be able to get a shot off within 3 or 4 seconds. He's that great of a player.
Yeah.
But, Harden and Kyrie, they're virtually the same player. So you kind of wonder how it looks with both these guys on the floor. And then Harden has a history of when other guys are having the ball in their hands, he kind of lays back and kind of stands at half court. I remember Chris Paul was saying that there was a lot of times when James would stand at half court and just kind of, not even want to be involved in the offense without the ball. And, Kyrie's at his best when he's dancing with the ball and everything. So it makes me think, it makes me wonder how these two are going to coexist on the floor together. I feel like Steve Nash, with the coaching staff that he has with Mike D'Antoni, they're going to have a very good game plan to complement those three guys. But it's going to have to be a lot of staggering those two, a lot of time where Kyrie's on the floor with KD without Harden and vice versa. As far as seeing it work long term, as far as in the playoffs, I mean, I feel like just off of talent alone, they're going to be able to run through the East. But then, in the finals against, maybe the Clippers, the Lakers, it's going to take more than just talent. And what's going to happen when it takes more than talent? Is everything just going to go crazy, or are they going to be able to coexist? So that's the main question in my eyes.
Yeah, I think that, again, you're talking about James Harden and Kevin Durant are absolutely top 10 players in the league. There's been periods of time where Kyrie, I think, is considered that. And if you just want to talk about overall ability, I think Kyrie's one of the 10 best offensive players in the NBA. I don't dispute that at all. With his ability to not only just handle the ball, create his own shot, get to the rim, shoot the ball from the outside. I mean, he's a threat from everywhere. He can get his on his own without the help of anybody else. So it's so fascinating to me that we have to figure out like who's going to be the guy, because you mentioned staggering. I think that's the way that the majority of the game is going to be handled. But what happens in the final 5 minutes of a close game? That's where I'm really wondering, like, who becomes the guy, because your point about what James Harden looks like in Houston off the ball is completely valid. He doesn't like to move around. He doesn't like to expend a lot of energy when the ball's not in his hands. And that's kind of what Kyrie does best. And look, James Harden, for that matter, is as good as anybody in the NBA getting to the free throw line because he has the ball in his hands. So, what kind of weapon is he without the ball in his hands? What are you doing to Kyrie's game if you don't have the ball in his hands? Kevin Durant is going to get his no matter what happens. I'm with you there. The ball will find Kevin Durant, and he's going to end up scoring a bunch of points every single night. But not only that, you look at the other end, James Harden and Kyrie Irving as your starting backcourt defensively isn't going to scare anybody. And then you add the aspect of, Kyrie sometimes wants to play, sometimes he doesn't. Like, the mental aspect for all three of these guys, for that matter, I think is intriguing. This is as crazy a situation in the NBA as I can ever remember, honestly.
Yeah, so it makes me wonder in the final 5 minutes, if Kyrie's got the ball and he's dancing and stuff, what's James Harden going to do? Is he just going to kind of just stand there,
spot up shooter?
Side? I mean, is that James Harden's MO? I mean, that's not what he wants to do at all. And then now my question is, who's going to be the one that sacrifices? Is it going to be James Harden, who's been the leading scorer in the league for the last 3-4 years? Is it going to be Kyrie, who's used to having the ball in his hands? I mean, KD's going to be a willing sacrificer because he knows that he might have to be the one to take less touches, but he's the best player on the floor. He's the best player on that team.
Yeah.
So Kevin Durant's not going to. He can't be that guy to take the back seat. So who's it going to end up being? Will it be James Harden or will it be Kyrie Irving? It's an interesting situation. I don't know how it's going to play out, but I'm so interested to see.
If I had to bet, I think James Harden is the guy with the ball in his hands in the final 5 minutes. Again, part of that is because of his ability to get to the free throw line. When he does pass, I do think James Harden is a good passer. It's not like I don't think he doesn't have that ability. But I just think if you're looking at both of those guys, obviously they're both incredible with the ball in their hands, but if it were me, I would feel like, again, the willingness to do this is a completely different story, but if it were me coaching this group, I think Kyrie Irving, to me, feels like the better option without the ball in his hands than James Harden would be, and would probably give you more without the ball in his hands than James Harden. And while I say that, I also recognize, like I've said this in the past, Kyrie Irving is probably the best guy off the dribble in the NBA. Like, I don't know that I would pick maybe Steph Curry's a close second in terms of just being able to create off the dribble. I mean, he's one of the best in the history of the NBA at that. So to think about having this conversation and taking him off the ball in a situation to me is mind-blowing. But yeah, that's the situation they're in. And look, I wouldn't at all be surprised given how just bizarre Kyrie's behavior has been this season if he's not a part of this team by the time the trade deadline gets here anyway.
I wouldn't be surprised at all because, I mean, these problems that he's given this team, I mean, very unprofessional. And he signed with this team. He's getting paid to play. You need to show up to work, man. I mean, that's all it is. I mean, I don't know what you got going on outside of basketball. I mean, I hope whatever it is, I mean, I hope he's all good. But you need to come and you need to work. I mean, KD signed with Brooklyn a large part because of Kyrie Irving. And KD, he's got a lot on the line this year. His legacy, I mean, coming back from a torn Achilles, I mean, he's got a lot on the line. And he put a lot of his trust into Kyrie. And Kyrie's kind of, not handling this, in a very friendly manner. So, yeah, man, it'll be interesting to see. I'm more curious on how Brooklyn's going to handle their last 3 roster spots. They've got 3 roster spots, and they've got a lot of offensive firepower, that's for sure. But they need some defense. They need to have some guys who predicate defense on the defensive end. Who's going to be that guy to, like you said, Kyrie Irving and James Harden as their backcourt? I mean, if I'm Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum, I'm like, yeah, man, we're going off for 100 to combine. And so I think I need to find some guys who predicate on defense because looking at their lineup now, the only defensive-minded player is DeAndre Jordan, maybe. I mean, KD can play some defense as well, but outside of that, Joe Harris, shooter. He's not really known for his defense. Shamet, shooter, not really known for his defense. I like the Bruce Brown kid. He can play some defense, but, I mean, you need more than him. TLC, he's another guy. So, I mean, they've got some pieces, but, I mean, these guards here now in the NBA, I mean, goodness. You're going to need a lot of defensive firepower to handle those guys. So,
yeah.
It'll be interesting to see, man.
Yeah. So my preseason pick was Nets to win the East. And look, I think it's easy to just give all the credit to Kyrie and KD, but when you looked at that roster to start the season, I mean, Spencer Dinwiddie is one of the most underrated players in the NBA. You have your backup point guard situation figured out there. Karis LeVert is, again, I think one of the best just, second team scorers, sixth man type guys in all of the league. I think Jarrett Allen was the perfect rim protector for that group and again, can finish offensively if you need him to. Joe Harris spreads the floor for everybody. I mean, it felt like they had all the right pieces around KD and Kyrie for those guys to excel and this team to just be really good from a lot of different aspects. But If I had to bet now, I think I'd probably bet against them winning the East after this trade. And look, I think you also have to consider just how crazy Kyrie has been as well. I mean, that is a big factor for how this thing is going to unfold. And he was mad about the Steve Nash hiring. And he and KD have been on the rocks anyway. And so you add this other piece into it, and it just kind of feels like a dumpster fire a little bit. But if you had to bet, are they winning the East right now?
Man, just based off of talent, firepower alone, it's going to be hard to stop those three guys on a nightly basis. I do believe that they'll win the East. I believe that they'll figure out some extra pieces to add to the roster. I do think they'll win the East, but as far as winning it all, I gotta see more. I gotta see the chemistry, man, because it takes chemistry, sacrifice. It takes so much defense to win a championship, and they're lacking in a few of those areas. I gotta see it, man. And with Kyrie being as much of a head case as he's been, they need him to be locked in. They need him to be the Kyrie that was in Cleveland when he helped LeBron James win the championship. They need that guy who was locked in and who was motivated to win. Without him, I don't know, man. There's just a lot of moving parts, a lot of things that have to go right for those guys. So, I mean, I do think they'll win the East just based off of talent and firepower. There's not a lot of Eastern Conference teams who have that. But as far as winning it all, there's a lot's going to have to be done.
Yeah. If they were in the West, it would be really interesting to see them face the challenges that they would face in the first round, second round, third round if they make it that far, because it's so deep. You're going to get tested. And when you have to face adversity that much, I mean, again, the mental part plays a big role in that situation. So maybe they never get pushed to the point in the Eastern Conference playoffs where that becomes as big a factor. But I don't know. It's intriguing, man. Like I said, I know that, this was brought up to me yesterday. The Lakers bringing in Dwight Howard and Steve Nash to pair with Kobe Bryant was one of those crazy, what could this look like? I never really thought that was going to be much of anything. I don't know how many people thought it meant championship. I wasn't one of them. I just thought, Steve Nash is not an elite player anymore. Dwight Howard just didn't seem like the right fit anyway. And so I wasn't in that category, but I know some people felt like, hey, that guarantees them a championship, and it was a complete disaster.
I think the idea, just like this one in Brooklyn, it looked good on paper with the Lakers, but they did not have the right coach. If you remember, Mike D'Antoni was coaching that team, and you have two bigs. You had Dwight and you had Powell. That doesn't space the floor at all. I mean, I don't know if they were trying to run the triangle or what, but it got to a point where it was better for when one of those guys were out of the lineup. When Powell was out, I remember he was starting. I don't know if you remember Earl Clark.
Yeah.
But a stretch four that fit more of D'Antoni's system. And Powell was kind of unhappy with his role on the team. Dwight was dealing with injuries. Steve Nash was dealing with injuries. I think he was 39, 40 at that point. And then Kobe was just trying to make everything work. So, I mean, they didn't have the right coach. There was a lot of things with the Lakers that just went wrong that season. As far as Brooklyn, I feel like they have the right coach with Steve Nash. He's in his first year. He's got the right coaching staff. He's got a lot of people around him who will help him make all the right decisions, the right moves. So I feel like they have the right coaching staff. As far as pieces, I feel like it can work. I don't think that James Harden and Kyrie can be your backcourt. I think you're gonna have to move Harden to the 3, KD at the 4, a big at the 5, and then you have to put someone who's defensive minded at the 2, like TLC or somebody to start. So that way you just have a little bit of a defensive presence, identity out on the perimeter.
Getting a guy like Avery Bradley or somebody like that would be just big time for them. Yeah.
Perfect. Because, because the way I watch James Harden and Kyrie Irving, they're such willing switchers So if they're gonna switch between each other,
Yeah.
that's not gonna work.
Yeah.
So you're gonna have to have a guy who's gonna be willing to take on the defensive challenge every night of the point guards and the two guards for that to work, in my opinion. But yeah, man, I feel like James Harden, KD, and Kyrie, between those three, it's a good problem to have as far as them on the court. But with all the drama with Kyrie off the court, it just adds so much. So, I mean, it'll be interesting to see, man. I just hope they get it figured out and we see some good basketball.
About an hour after the trade, this tweet from NBA Central hit my timeline. Kyrie Irving is furious with the Nets organization for not giving him more input on hiring of Steve Nash. His relationship with Kevin Durant has become, quote, very distant. So and that doesn't even have anything to do with Harden. Like, notice the name that wasn't involved in that tweet. So there you go. It's like, I don't know. I kind of feel like the off the court stuff may blow this thing up way before the whole who's going to have the ball in their hands in the closing minutes. But I'm just, can we just get a date for when the three guys are going to be on the floor together? Like, that's all I want. Like, I want to put it on my calendar. Like, January 23rd, they're all going to be on the floor together, suited up, ready to go. I need something to circle and something to look forward to.
Right, man. And, KD's looked so good these last few games. I mean, the show he put on at MSG against the Knicks, I mean, I was a little worried about how he would look with his Achilles coming back, but that's the same guy to me.
Yep.
That is the same guy. And then, but as far as the off-court issues with Kyrie, man, it's just sad because you wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt really bad because of what he did in Cleveland and how he was how he was such a marksman in Cleveland, how he made that shot to win them in Game 7. And then you kind of were rooting for him when he went to Boston. The guy who wants his own team, you were kind of rooting for him. And then you see all these problems start to happen. And then you kind of don't believe, Kyrie doesn't say much. It couldn't be him. But now everywhere he's been, there's been some kind of problem with Kyrie.
He's a pain in the ass. I mean, that's just the bottom line, yeah.
Absolutely. And it makes you credit LeBron that much more just for having to deal with that. And if there were problems, they never saw the media. Or if there were problems, it would all fall on LeBron's shoulders.
Yeah.
So, it's a credit to his leadership. And then, Kyrie wanted out of that situation. And, he's made all these other situations that have been really good for him. He's turned them into the shit, kind of, in a way. So,
yeah. I don't know how he's going to handle the Chris Bosh role. Because, look, James Harden's an MVP in this league. Kevin Durant's an MVP in this league. And for as great as Kyrie Irving is, and I'm a big fan of his game, to your point, I've rooted for Kyrie Irving every step of the way because I enjoy watching him play that much. But, I mean, there's no denying that he's the number 3 guy there.
Absolutely. He is the number 3 guy.
He's the Bosh.
Yeah, he's got to be willing to take on that sacrifice.
Yeah.
If he doesn't, this will not work. James Harden is too good of a player to take on that sacrifice. Kevin Durant is too good of a player to take on that sacrifice. Can Kyrie be willing to take on not even a similar role, but just take a step back, just like he was in Cleveland? I mean, LeBron let him do his thing, but he's gonna have to take a step back, and he's got to be okay with it. And if that's not gonna work, then I mean, I know Kevin Durant loves him, but I mean, you might have to ship him off, man.
I'm here for the press conference following Steve Nash's request to come off the bench.
Oh, man. and he goes, hey, K, they want me to come off the bench.
Right.
And KD says, yeah, I do too.
Oh, he would. Yeah, that would be a complete disaster. But again, I think it's as intriguing as anything that's happened in the NBA from a personnel standpoint. How these guys will work together. Look, it was last year. Just the Harden and Westbrook dynamic was super intriguing leading up to the season. How were those guys going to handle the situation? And now you have a similar situation, but you add KD to the mix as well. And it's It's going to be fun. I'm excited. So just for the love of God, give us a date on when these guys are going to be on the floor together. All right,
Absolutely,
Saturday,
man.
we have UFC Fight Night in Abu Dhabi, Fight Island. This is huge, and we talked about the last time you were on the show, we just talked about the massive year 2020 was for the UFC, the growth of the UFC in 2020, and just how much the pandemic, as far as nobody playing their sports, but the UFC continuing to roll on, how much that meant to their overall just visibility and popularity. And, you know, again, I was stunned by how many people I knew that were maybe like fringe fans or not fans at all that all of a sudden started watching every single week. And, you know, the result of that is an ABC fight card on Saturday. The UFC on ABC. This is a monster deal.
Absolutely, man. It is absolutely massive. And as soon as I heard it, that the UFC was going to be on ABC, it made me think of watching basketball on ABC, how important that those games are. You don't see just a common matchup. You see some of the best matchups in the NBA on ABC. And it's going to be the same thing with the UFC. They're opening up with a absolutely banger of a fight, and the whole card. I mean, I'm so intrigued by this, and just to see what it's going to be going forward. Man, and then the boxing aspect of it. I mean, we haven't seen fights on ABC in over. I can't remember how long it's been, but it's been. Off the top of my head, I want to say it's been about 15 years since there's been any type of fights on ABC.
I think I heard like 98 maybe earlier this week. That 90. I could be wrong. I think somewhere I heard that right around 98 was the last time that they broadcast boxing. But that's what they were known for. I mean, you know, they were the only ones at one point.
Absolutely. So that's over 20 years where there hasn't been any type of combat sports. And then you bring in the UFC, who's coming off of such a big year as far as viewership. And they were the only league that was going at the time. And now you bring in all of the ESPN viewers, and now you're going to bring in even more viewers with ABC. The UFC is rolling, man. They are rolling.
Yeah, I'm excited for a big 2021. 2020 was as good as it gets, and I mean they have their work cut out for themselves if they're going to try to match what we got from the sport a year ago. But look, I have complete confidence that they're going to be able to do it. I mean, the roster right now is deep and talented, and every division I think has multiple big storylines. I mean, the health of the sport is so great right now.
It's so great that the UFC has to cut down the roster a little bit, right? I mean, they're talking about cutting 50 to 60 guys, and you're like, whoa.
Yeah.
I mean, that just goes to show how deep they are. Just to come out and say something like that, that means that they're completely good on all fronts as far as these fighters go. And it was such a big year with the Contender Series. So many fighters came through and performed at such a high level. So now you look at some of these guys who are kind of like mid-level or who are kind of 500 in their fights. I mean, some of these guys are becoming expendable because these younger guys are willing to fight. They're not willing to be paid that much. They just want to go out there and fight, and they're doing it for the love of fighting, not just, you know, trying to be a star or whatever. So, I mean, the UFC is in a great spot. The lineup so far this year looks insane. I mean, they've booked fights up to about April, I think. And just the first 4 months, man, I'm excited, man.
How are you feeling about the pay-per-view a week from Saturday?
Oh my gosh, man. I'm so hyped for that card. Man, it's so intriguing. Dustin Poirier, Conor McGregor. The second time these guys have fought, the first time these guys were young, hungry prospects. This is a completely different fight now.
And they're completely different fighters.
Fighters. They both have championship level experience. They both have been in wars. I mean, Conor has seen some of the biggest paydays in mixed martial arts history, the biggest gates. Dustin, he's worked his way. His quote is paid in full. He's worked his way into being a championship level fighter. He's paid all of his dues. Conor, it's kind of the same. It's kind of the same thing. He worked his way through the featherweight division, and then you saw the star just kind of blow up. And now he's at a point where he needs to get back to being that championship level fighter. We're kind of seeing him fight once a year or once every 2 years. You know, we want to see Conor back to see if he's really the best. That's what I want to see. I want to see if Conor's still the best. And with this fight with Dustin, we're really going to see if Conor's at that level, because Dustin's going to push him.
Oh yeah.
I mean, if Conor doesn't get him out of there in 60 seconds, like he says, what's going to happen after that? That's kind of been my thing with Conor. You know, he's got a hell of a left hand. He'll put anybody down with that left hand. But what happens when people survive that left hand?
Right.
Khabib, Nate Diaz, you know, he kind of gasses out a little bit. I want to see, just like Dustin said, he wants a war. I want to see Conor in a war, and I want to see him. Tested, man.
Dustin was asked last week what his hope for this fight is, and he said, "I hope in the first minute of the fight we're both cut and bleeding everywhere, and we're both hurt." And it was like, what? Like, why wouldn't you? Because he was like, that's the point where we find out who wants it more. Because he was like, I know that I can go through that adversity and still give everything I have. And he's like, I don't know how Conor would react to that. So Dustin Poirier is my favorite fighter in UFC, because every time he fights, that's what you get. Like, it is just, absolutely. He is going to go forward and he is going to just throw until the final, horn sounds or the final bell rings. Like, there's just no stop. And every time he fights, it's incredibly entertaining. That said, Conor McGregor can end this fight with one swing, like you said, and it's not just the power, it's all the different angles that it can come from, and it's the weird kicks that can come out of nowhere. Like, he's just so awkward that it's not for Dustin, it's not as simple as just going forward and throwing everything that you're going to throw and having like a boxing type match. I love this fight. I can't wait. And let me ask you this real quick before we get into the card that's going to be this Saturday. Have we reached a point where we have seen Conor McGregor go from extremely maybe overrated to now maybe a little underrated? Like, have we reached that point, or do you think he's properly rated?
That's a great question, man. Because there was a point where I felt like he was very overrated.
Yeah.
I felt like there was holes in his game that that the guys he was fighting just weren't able to capitalize on.
Because his star was so big, I think some people kind of felt like, he was the biggest star for sure, but certainly absolutely. I don't think anybody thought he was the best pound for pound guy, and that's what I mean by overrated. So
exactly. And I don't think he's ever held that distinction of being the number one pound for pound guy. I mean, maybe after he won the double title, the double championships, but after that he went away for a couple years and went to go box. We haven't seen him be able to hold on to the title, defend the title 2-3 times like Khabib has or anything. So I can kind of say maybe he's become a little underrated at this point, because people may have forgotten just how much of an assassin that the man is. And I mean, Dustin's going to test him, man. That's what I want to see. I want to see him get tested. But Conor is as skilled of a striker that you're going to see in the UFC. And in their first matchup, I remember watching the lead up to it. Conor was in his head. Like, Dustin, that's the guy that you see now.
Yeah.
If you look back and you see how Dustin was back then, that's not the same guy. Conor was in his head, and Conor knew it. And Conor knew that he could capitalize off that. This fight, it's not about being a star. It's not about trash talk. It's about who wants it more, just like Dustin said. And we're going to see. We are going to see.
The thing about both of these guys, like, I think they're both in, I don't know if you want to say top 5 or top 10 or whatever. I would just simply say these guys are among the most accurate strikers in the entire sport, not just in the lightweight division, but I mean, I think like Izzy is in that group, but Dustin and Connor are right there as well. I mean, when you start thinking about every weight class and just guys that seemingly land every time they throw, I mean, both of these guys are in that group. So like when you get them together, this is going to be a great fight. I'm super stoked.
And Connor, he's one of the best. Like his precision, his kicks, his left hand. I mean, he's got so many weapons. But Dustin will come with his boxing is so crisp. His boxing is so tight, man. And I mean, like you said, man, when you get these two together, it's just going to be interesting to see like who's going to be able to land that first punch. I mean, Dustin at this point in this lightweight division, we've rarely seen him, get dropped. But Connor is that type of puncher that if he lands one, it's a wrap, man. But if he doesn't, if Dustin can push him into these later rounds, we've seen Connor. I remember with Nate in the third round, Connor hit Nate with some of his best shots, dropped him a bunch of times. But by that third round, man, Connor's over there walking with his hands on his hips. Man, I mean, if Dustin sees that, he'll be able to push a pace. Dustin's able to push a pace for 5 rounds that even someone like Nate Diaz can't, because Dustin's going to be able to push him in all aspects, in all areas of the game, striking, grappling, jiu-jitsu. There's nowhere that Connor can go that's particularly safe. So, I mean, it's going to be interesting, man. Man, I can't wait. And then you got the co-main, Dan Hooker and Michael Chandler, man.
Yeah.
Goodness.
Yeah, we'll break that down next week as well, because that one is awesome also. But the last thing on McGregor Poirier, this to me is the 155 lightweight version of Rocky versus Drago, Rocky 4.
Absolutely. Oh, man. Wow.
Oh, and we're gonna have the same sort of fight montage afterward, where just everything is landing.
Absolutely, man. That's perfect. That's perfect.
There you go.
That is perfect.
All right, so we are going to do a UFC competition where we are picking fights, and there's a point system attached to this, and it's going to be fun. I'm excited for you to have to text me and be like, man, I can't believe you beat me again every single week. Even though you got me on the last pay-per-view, you bested me in the picks, but
as long as you admit that.
But look, that's my motivation. I was taking you lightly, Will. That was the problem. You know what? I learned from my mistakes. I was taking you lightly, and then you got me on a fight card. So now we gotta step it up. So we're gonna make our picks every single week for every single Saturday night card, and we'll tally the scores and we'll update the scores every single week. So the way we're doing this is it's going to be the main card every week, and it's a confidence point system. So if there are 5 fights on the main card, the fight you feel the most confident about, you pick that fight and you award that one 5 points. The one you feel least confident about, obviously, you're only going to put one point on that fight. So it's a little bit more complex than that, though, just to kind of make it a little more fun and strategic throughout the process. So you can take one undercard fight if you want to and sub it in for a main card fight, but it can't be for the main event. And that one can only go in your 1 point slot. So if you want to take one undercard fight, it's in the 1 point slot on your main card, and you switch that out for any fight that's not the main event on the main card. The second part, to just incentivize maybe some underdogs. If you're feeling like you're 50-50 with a guy that's a pretty big underdog, then maybe going with the underdog is the better play because you get bonus points if you take a guy that is plus 200 or more to win the fight. So if you have just, I don't know, I'm just giving an example, but let's just say that Poirier is plus 250 against Connor, and that's your 3 point fight next week. If you take Poirier, that fight, if you get it, you get bonus points in the aftermath of it. So it's pretty simple. It's not too complex, but it just adds a little bit of a strategy other than just simply picking the fights, right?
Yeah, pretty simple. I'm going to go ahead and start chalking up my W's now. Might need might need to get a leaderboard somewhere for all my W's, and every week I'll just put W here, and we'll go from there, man.
You know what? I'll have this. I'll have a scoreboard for the stream. So, after this one, every time we do this, the scoreboard will be visible for everybody to see. So that'll also be motivation for whoever is picking up those L's.
You mean you? But yeah.
All right, fair enough. All right, so again, 5 fights on this main card on Saturday. You can substitute one undercard fight if you choose for any fight on the card other than the Max Holloway Calvin Kattar fight. Which I got to be honest with you, man. I'm struggling even at this very minute. I'm not sure which way I'm going to go here because I just love this fight that much. But you want to go first? You want me to make my first selection?
So how we're doing this, we're going.
I'll give you my 1 point fight first, and then we'll just move our way to the 5 point fight.
Okay, let's do it.
All right, so I am going to sub out my 1 point fight with a guy that I think is really talented and a guy that I think has a bright future in the sport. This is the undercard headliner. I'm going Philip Haas with the win in the middleweight division as my 1 point slot. So there you go.
Okay, I think that I'm going to strictly stick with the main card. However, I was looking through the names on this first fight, which I would like to be my 1 point.
Okay.
And I had a hard time pronouncing these names. And I kind of wanted to see if you would take a crack at these two guys that are fighting on the first fight of the main card.
I mean, talk about throwing me under the bus right out of the gate. Damn, dude.
Because I tried, but I couldn't do it, man.
Yeah, so Punahele Soriano.
Oh, that's good. Okay.
And
then the other guy?
I think it's, I know the last name, but I don't know. I'm not sure on the first name. Dusko Todorovic.
Well, anyways, out of those two guys,
you're not going to attempt it?
I what?
By the way, I have no idea if that's right or not. I just said it with so much confidence that you're believing me right now. So
yeah, exactly. You said it like you've done this before, so I like it. So I want to say the S guy's name, sorta
Todorovic.
Kind of as far as Sotorovich. I think I'm taking him as my 1 point winner.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. All right.
And hopefully after I'll be able to pronounce his name.
All right. Give me your two.
I got to hear Anik say it one time. That'll be good.
Right. They usually do that on their podcast, but I didn't hear if they did that this week or not. I don't think I caught that one. So, all right. Give me your 2-pointer.
Okay. I'm going to go with, man, some of these were tough.
Yeah.
But my 2 point, I'm going to take, I'm going to take Joaquin Buckley.
Oh, okay.
For my 2 point. Yeah. I'm going to take Joaquin Buckley for my 2 point. I considered him for the 3, but I'm going to go ahead and take him for the 2 because Alessio, the guy he's fighting, he's no slouch. And we saw how Joaquin looked in his first fight after that big knockout. He was kind of rushing things. So it's going to be – I'm curious to see how he looks and see if he can take it to this guy.
Yeah. All right, I like that. I am so the next fight I had the most trouble with, and part of this is age, and part of this is just not having fought a lot recently. I'm going to take Carlos Condit over Matt Brown, and I'm giving Condit 2 points here because, again, I mean, Condit lost a bunch of fights in a row and then didn't fight for I felt like 2 years. I think he fought once this year, but I think it was like 2018 before he had fought. Matt Brown, I remember Matt Brown. I think I said Matt Brown just now. Matt Brown, I remember fighting Miguel Baeza earlier this year, and honestly looked pretty good out of the gate, but it was clear that like once that initial energy was gone, there was just nothing left in the tank. And I think once he took one on the chin, it just kind of felt like he wasn't the same guy anymore. And look, that's what age does to you. So, this one was tough for me, but I'm going to go Condit, and I'm going to give them the 2-pointer for me. Which leads us to our 3-point slot and takes me to the main event of the night, Max Holloway and Calvin Kattar. So again, this fight is so intriguing to me, and bravo to the UFC for putting this as the main event on this ABC broadcast, because I think this is going to be just a banger. It's going to be a great fight. I think it's going to be incredibly entertaining. And really, I think it just comes down to, do you think Kattar knocks out Max Holloway? Or otherwise, I think you just think Max Holloway is going to outpoint him over the course of 5 rounds. So that's kind of the way that I felt about the fight. Again, I've gone back and forth. I'm gonna go Kattar lands one big shot in this fight.
Wow.
I'm gonna step out on the limb and not play it safe. And I'm going to go Kattar lands one big shot. So give me Calvin Kattar, even though Max is one of my favorite fighters in the UFC. Calvin Kattar gets it done in my 3-point slot.
Well, I'm just going to say I'm feeling confident that I'm going to win this already.
All right.
But I'll go ahead and give you my 3-point. I'm going to go back to one of the earlier fights we mentioned, Carlos Condit and Matt Brown. To fight that we wanted to see happen for the last 5-6 years. I mean, this fight's been on and off. And now it might be too little too late maybe, but it's still a really fun matchup at this stage in these guys' career. I like Carlos Condit in this fight. I just think that win, his confidence is going to be at an all-time high, and I think this is the last fight of his deal, so he's going to be looking to go out on a high note. I mean, who knows what the future holds for him. So, and Matt Brown's, I think he's got one foot out the door as far as retirement. So, Matt Brown's still going to bring it, but I like Condit in this fight. So my 3-pointer would be Carlos Condit.
All right, fair enough. Give me your 4-pointer.
My 4-pointer, I will be going with the main event on this one, with Max Holloway and Calvin Kattar. Like you said, you couldn't have said it any better. It's, do you believe Kattar knocks him out early, or does Max outpoint him? I've seen enough of Max to where I really have to see someone put Max down. I saw Dustin Poirier land some of the most incredible shots on him, and while he may have stumbled, he never went down. And I've watched Calvin. He looks great. He beat Jeremy Stevens. He beat Dan Ige. But I took a lot from that Dan Ige fight. I feel like while Calvin won, there was still some things that he lacked in order to be at a championship level, and this is a completely different level. So I think that Calvin goes into this fight and he kind of waits to pick his shots, and I think that's going to cost him rounds. Some of these guys, when they go from 3-round fights where they're getting these knockouts, and then they go to the 5-round fights, they want to change up their game. They want to be sure that they have the gas tank at the end to, keep up with these guys. And Max will keep a pace of 25 minutes that he hasn't really been able to see yet. So I think Max will outpoint him. I just think that championship experience, all the wars that he's been through, I think that helps him. And my 4 points will be going to Max Holloway.
I like it. I was extremely torn on this fight, man. And look, I think your point about the Dan Ige fight's really interesting, because I also felt like against Dan Ige, I thought he really pushed too hard for the knockout. He was coming off of that Jeremy Stevens KO, And it just felt like watching him against Ige, like he was just he was going to do everything in his power to land that one big shot. And you're right. I think he does. I think he is more patient against Max in this fight because it just felt like he was forcing it too much against Dan, and that bit him, especially defensively. I felt like he put himself in some bad positions, and Ige was able to land some stuff as well. So everything you said, I think is spot on. I just think that it makes him adjust in a good way as opposed to maybe adjusting in a bad way.
Yeah, and that's it's very possible because he's got a good team. I mean, his teammate Rob Font just beat Marlon Moraes. So I mean, that team it's at an all-time high right now. And Calvin Kattar, he looks better every time we see him.
Yeah.
But at this point, it becomes like, are you on that level? Are you going to be able to think the game while still being able to maximize what you do best? And I feel like Max has been there and done that, and Calvin is entering that. So I think this is kind of one of those learning experience fights for him. Max is just at a level that I think he's just too much for him, man.
Yeah. All right, so it looks like we both have the same fight for our 5-pointer.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Do you?
For sure.
I've got the pronunciation here. Do you want to go with it?
I got this one.
Okay.
Too.
Okay.
I watched. So for both of them, we've got Santiago Ponzinibbio.
There you go.
Versus Li Jingliang. I hope I got that right.
Yeah.
I hope I didn't butcher that. But yeah, does that mean you want me to go first as far as my pick?
Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So in this one, Santiago, he's coming off of a layoff. 2 years. He dealt with some injuries.
Long layoff. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think his last fight was in 2018. But he was trending up towards a title shot before he took this hiatus. He knocked out Gunnar Nelson. He knocked out Neil Magny. He's knocking out these guys who we don't normally see get knocked out. And I just feel like with the layoff, it's going to help him. I feel like he's not fighting a guy who puts him in that much danger. I mean, while Lee is good, while he's tough, I just think Santiago's just at a different level. And we may see him struggle out the gate, but I think once he gets his rhythm back, we'll either see a finish or we'll just see him kind of coast to a easy win. So
yeah,
I like Santiago in this fight, and I'm most confident that Santiago will be victorious.
Same for me. Yeah, Ponzinibbio, I think. Again, this was a no-brainer, I think, in terms of looking at the card and putting 5 points somewhere. And you know, the layoff obviously is significant, but I think the most valid thing you said is the opponent. You know, maybe against a more dangerous opponent, I would probably have more doubts about the layoff and just how much the rust potentially weighs in on the performance. But again, I just don't think this opponent is dangerous enough to the point that, you know, it takes him too long to kind of settle in.
Right. And I remember watching Lee against Neil Magny, who was coming off of a 2-year layoff, and, you know, Neil kind of had his way with him. So I take that performance and I look at Santiago, who's more of a power puncher. I just don't see it going well for Lee.
Yeah. Argentine Dagger, by the way, great nickname.
Absolutely. I forgot what his old nickname was, but I'm glad he got rid of that one. So, yeah, the Argentine Dagger, that describes him pretty well for sure.
All right, so how confident are you? You going 5 for 5?
Man, I think I put all my fighters in just the right spots.
Yeah.
I think I'm going. If I don't go 5 for 5, I'm at least winning.
Okay, fair enough.
I'm at least gonna win.
So you're saying you just feel really good about Max Holloway beating Calvin Kattar, essentially.
Yes, absolutely, and I can't wait for Max to get his hand raised, and I'm pretty sure that's going to be the deciding factor in me winning. So
yeah, I mean, that would be a big point
Ready to
swing
see it.
because I would lose out on 3, and you're getting 4 there. So yeah, that's a pretty massive point swing for the main event. But it's you got to gamble a little bit.
Yeah, you do have to gamble, but I think this is one of those safe bets in my opinion, and I think that Max is gonna do it for me, man. Max hasn't let me down yet.
How many fights in a row has Max lost now?
Just the 2 to Volkanovski.
Did he not fight Poirier right before Volkanovski?
Well, right after Poirier, he fought Frankie Edgar, and beat him by decision.
Okay.
Yeah, so he got one more featherweight fight in, and then ran into Volko.
That's right. Yeah, you're right. I was thinking I'd completely forgot about that fight actually. So
yeah, it flew under the radar. It wasn't on a big card. So.
Yeah. The Brian Ortega fight is one of those that just was one of the most dominant wins I think I've ever seen in a big fight. I mean, to the point that obviously Brian Ortega missed a bunch of time after that, but Max just, I don't know. Again, I forgot about the Frankie Edgar fight, but after Poirier, just kind of felt like something a little different about him. That said, I honestly thought he won the last Volkanovski fight. So,
yeah, I think he kind of just lost. Well, Poirier, that was a war, and I think as far as the featherweights went, I think he just kind of lost interest. Maybe.
That's probably fair.
Thought like he could go in. I think he probably just thought that he was going to go in, and none of these guys were on his level. And I'm sure he looked at Volkanovski, and during the fight, you kind of just saw like Volkanovski was landing kicks, punches, and everything, and Max kind of wasn't adjusting anything. He was kind of just worried about his boxing. And then you see in the second fight, he made those adjustments. So I think with these 2 losses, I think he's more motivated now than he's been. I think he's found the hunger again to get back to being on top because, I mean, nobody wants to be on a losing streak, but especially a guy like Max who's beloved around the sport and who's such a big star. I feel like just, being a champion as long as he was kind of losing that hunger. And I think he's got it back now.
Yeah, you could be right. I don't know what the overall thirst is for another Volkanovski Max fight. But I mean, look, he wins this. I don't know, after Ortega gets his opportunity, I don't know who else you even have the conversation about. So it's tough.
Yeah, you got to put Max in there next if he wins.
Yeah.
Because, he's been the longest reigning champion in the featherweight division, and now he just needs to get that win back. And then Volkanovski obviously has to fight Ortega next. So Max wins this, he'll be waiting in the wings, and I'm sure that they're hoping that we'll get Ortega to win, and then we get a Ortega Max rematch. But I mean, Volkanovski and Ortega, that's a really interesting fight, and.
Well, depending on how close that is, it could be that could also be a rematch situation. I think, especially if Max wins, they might hold off on Max having that opportunity and just go rematch with Ortega Volkanovski. If Cater wins, I absolutely believe Cater's getting the shot next, no matter what. So
absolutely. Yeah. He's got to get that shot next because he's 3 fights in a row, and then the next contender after him would be. Zabit, who we haven't seen. So I mean, the stars are aligning for him to clearly be the next guy in line if he wins this one.
Yeah. Again, I'll be curious to see how they handle the whole Max Volkanovski thing if both of those guys win their next fights. I would love to see another one. Honestly, I don't know how many people are in that same group though. I don't feel like there's a massive outcry to see them fight again. But I could be wrong.
Yeah, it's just that I don't really know how you sell it.
Yeah.
But then again, these fights have been so close. I mean,
right.
for hardcore fans like us, we're like, we need to see this one again because the first fight was pretty close, but it was clear that Volkanovski won. The second fight was even closer, but a lot of the world had Max winning. So in our eyes, we really don't think that Volkanovski validated himself as the best featherweight in the world when we think that Max won that last one. So for me, I would love to see a third fight between those two. So, but as far as like the people who are kind of in between, they probably won't want to see that one again.
Yeah. Man, it's going to be a lot of fun. We're obviously going to do this every week for every card throughout the year. I mean, there'll obviously be weeks where maybe we're not able to do it, but we'll keep score all year long, and maybe we'll do some sort of like either prize or punishment like at the end of every month to kind of like just like maybe reset it or just add a little bit of something extra.
So those weeks that we won't be doing this, are those going to be after those L's? Or are you going to have to take some time to recover and go back to the war room and see?
No, I'm just giving us that out on the in case there's a week where you've I don't know, your dog dies and you've got to go take care of it or something, But
for sure.
But yeah, no, this is going to be a regular thing every week. So. Yeah, I'm excited about it, though, man. I think, like I said at the beginning of this, the UFC just had a monster 2020, and I think when you just kind of look at what's ahead in 2021 and you look at all the storylines in every weight class and just the super fights that potentially come to fruition over the course of the next 12 months, it's going to be a lot of fun this year in the UFC.
Absolutely, man. Just the first couple months, we're going to see a lot of intriguing fights, a lot of intriguing matchups, and that's not even scratching the surface of what's to come.
Yeah,
I think, like you said, every division is stacked with matchups, stacked with contenders who could become champions, and all of the fighters who were breakout stars, now they're stars. So I'm curious to see who's going to be those guys to come up this year. Because, 2020 came and gone so fast, we still feel like Hamza Chimaev is new and Kevin Holland, these guys are still new. But, these guys aren't breakout stars anymore. These guys are in the thick of things now. These guys are contenders who are looking to become champions. So now I'm curious to see who's going to be the next crop of guys to be those breakout stars. And then these title fights that are coming up, man, they're so intriguing. 2021 is shaping up to be a better year than 2020, and that's just crazy to even think about because of how good 2020 was. But man, and now you're getting these first 3 Fight Island cards with some fans with the new arena setting. So we suffered through the no fans and the kind of closed off kind of arenas like at the Apex and what Fight Island was, and now we're getting back to fans. We're getting back to arenas, big settings. So, man, I'm here for it.
Is it crazy that I kind of like it better without the fans?
No, not at all. Because without the fans, you got to hear the punches. You got to hear the corners.
Yeah, it's so much more intimate, right?
Right. You got to hear Kevin Holland talk to these guys, talk noise to these guys while he's getting hit.
You got to hear Glover Teixeira telling Anthony Smith he was sorry while he was breaking his face. Like, it's absolutely. I don't know. There's something really charming about not having the people inside. Now, at the same time, when there's a massive punch that lands and the whole place like erupts, that's a great feeling. But I think, there's pros and cons, obviously, both ways.
Yeah, just think. Joaquin Buckley gets that knockout. Imagine if that would have been in front of a crowd. Yeah. Imagine if Dustin Poirier, Dan Hooker, that fight was in front of a crowd. Like you said, there's pros and cons, but man,
yeah,
so excited, man.
We're gonna have to. How every time there's a knockout, since there are no fans, like I feel like over the last year, it's become even more of a thing where they show the reactions of all 3 of the broadcasters, like going, oh. I almost feel like we need to have some weekly give out like an oh shit award where it's like that knockout made me go oh shit.
Yeah, for sure. Because we do that enough when there's a knockout through text. Like,
right, yeah.
Oh shit, did you see that? Yeah, so we do that enough, so we might as well make an award for it.
Yeah, for sure. I wanted to leave you with this. And if you want to give me any bold predictions for something you might want to see or something like that in 2021, you can do that as well. But if you had to bet today on who the champions of every division will be at the end of 2021,
Wow. Ooh, okay. Wow. Okay. All right. I'm gonna start from women's.
All right.
I'll go women's and I'll go to the men's. I'll start with the lowest.
Okay.
So women's strawweight. The champion at the end of this year will be. Oh my gosh, because Whaley and Rose.
Yeah.
That's tough. Champion at the end of this, I think will be. I'm gonna go Rose. I'm gonna go Rose.
All right. I'm there too. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Rose. Strawweight. Wait, is that straw? Okay,
Fly.
strawweight, flyweight.
Yeah.
Flyweight. I don't see anybody beating Valentina. I think that's pretty easy. Women's bantamweight. I don't see anybody beating Amanda. Women's featherweight. I don't think there will be a women's featherweight division at the end of this year.
Yeah.
On the men's side, or did you want to go? You want me to go to the men's side?
Yeah. Men's. Yeah. Because I agree with all those you just said. Yeah.
Okay. Men's flyweight. We'll go. We'll stick with Figueiredo, man.
Okay.
I don't think anybody's going to beat him.
No Moreno or Garbrandt.
No, I don't think Cody goes down. And I think in a rematch, Figueiredo wins.
All right.
Against Moreno. Bantamweight. Man, these are tough.
Yeah.
Wow. Bantamweight. I really like Aljo, but that division is so close with some of those top guys. Okay, I'll go Aljo for 135.
We're identical on every one of these so far, by the way.
I
did see. I think it was. Chael Sonnen said this week that he thinks that Dillashaw is going to be the bantamweight champion by the end of the year.
God, I forgot about him. Dang, he could very well be the champion. But him and Aljo is okay. I'm going out. I'm sticking with Aljo.
Okay, yeah, I'm Aljo as well.
Featherweight, Volkanovski the champion now. I think by the end of this year, the champion will be Max Holloway.
Okay.
I think he regains.
I'll say
lightweight.
Volkanovski still has it.
If it's not Max, it'll be Volkanovski for sure.
Yeah.
Lightweight, this is where it gets even tougher. Lightweight, we're gonna go. I just wish I knew what Khabib was gonna do.
I know,
man.
right?
Okay, but if we're going by the end of the year, I think the champion at 155 will be. Man, I think Khabib will retire. I think Conor will go box. So I think it leaves a hole towards the end of the year where Justin Gaethje wins is the champion. I'm not.
That was like the I'm Ron Burgundy.
I'm definitely not confident in that pick at all, but I just think Khabib will be gone and Conor's gonna go box. So my third guy is Justin. So
yeah, I was gonna go Justin as well, and it was either Justin or Charles.
Man, and I hear that's going to be a fight that's going to be coming up soon. So that's going to be we'll see. That's going to be a good one. Okay, welterweight. I really like Usman, man. I don't see anybody beating him. I think Gilbert Burns is the toughest matchup for him and Colby, but I think Usman just is at that level. He's got that championship mindset where no one's going to be able to touch him. 185 middleweights. The middleweight champion at the end of 2021 will be Robert Whittaker.
Oh, do you think because Izzy moves out of the division, or because Whittaker wins.
Yeah, I think Izzy moves out of the division.
Okay.
I think at this point, he's beaten the who's who of the division already, and eventually it's just going to be Rob, just being better than everybody at that division outside of Izzy. So I think Rob wins it back.
All right, so I'm going Izzy there, by the way.
Yeah, if he's still there, I would go Izzy, but I just don't think at the end of the day that he'll want to keep moving back and forth. And then that brings me to 205, and I think the light heavyweight champion at the end of this will be Israel Adesanya.
Oh, you think Izzy's going to take down Jan, huh?
I do, man. I just think that while Jan has that power, I just think that Izzy kind of picks him apart on the outside and doesn't let Jan land anything big, and kind of frustrates him and maybe gets him out of there or just wins by decision.
Okay.
And then that leaves me with the heavyweights championship of the world. I'm going John Jones.
Oh!
Said it. I'm going Johnny Bones.
All right, I'm going Francis Ngannou.
Man, and it's so tough, but I think Steve beats him again. Beats him again, and I think he's so damaged from that fight that he runs into John, and John just kind of has his way with him. Kind of similar to what happened with DC.
Yeah. Fair enough. All right, man.
I think Stipe, yeah. John Jones.
John Jones. All right. Well, at the end of 2021, we'll revisit these. It'll be fun. We'll be like, what the hell were we thinking?
Yeah, definitely with mine, because I don't think that Gaethje's going to be the lightweight champion.
Yeah. Well, I mean, who knows, right? Like, you could throw like 8 names in a hat in that division, and
oh my gosh, you could.
Yeah,
man. It's crazy.
Well, and then
so stacked.
And then because of the potential of Izzy moving classes and what happens with Izzy Jan and Izzy John and John Francis, and I mean, like Stipe John, if that if it goes that way, like there are 3 divisions right there where there's so much up for grabs in terms of just where people are fighting that I think plays a significant role. So yeah, it's gonna be fun, man. It's gonna be a lot of fun.
Yeah, man, I can't wait, man. Just naming all my champions made me just like, man, I forgot about Stipe and Francis fighting probably soon.
Yeah.
And Usman Burns, and what's going to happen with the middleweight division while Izzy's fighting Jan, and what's going to happen with the lightweight division after this week. Man, so much.
It's going to be good stuff. Well, always appreciate it, my friend. We will obviously touch base next week, and we'll do this again for the pay-per-view card next week as well. But look, it's been a little break where we've had other things at least to pay attention to with football and everything else. But I'm certainly glad that we're getting it back. And I would even add this: for as many people as I know as there are that like the sport, I think this little break kind of made people fiend for it a little bit more after having it nonstop for basically all of 2020. So here we go.
Yeah, man. Like on these Saturdays, while college football is fun, like around 6-7 o'clock, I'm looking at there's no UFC on. Like, what do I do?
Yeah.
So, to have that back, it's gonna be fun, man. It's gonna be a great week, a great kickoff to to 2021. 3 amazing fight cards. First one, UFC on ABC. Remember, it starts early, man.
Yep.
I know you're a night owl, but it starts early, my brother.
Yeah. I like the late night fights better, but yeah, I'm ready for the 3 o'clock start, right?
Yep, 3 o'clock start.
Noon prelim.
Noon prelim. It'll be fun, man.
There you go.
And I'll be getting my victory speech ready for next week. Let's do it, baby.
I'm ready for you to be humbled. So we'll catch up next week.
Yes, sir.
All right, later, my friend. Will Brewer joining
Later,
me on the Colby Daniels podcast. That is it for this episode of the Colby Daniels Podcast, presented by Artisan Botanicals in Midwest City. Check out their line of natural medicine products, including Kratom, CBD, or the new Delta 8 capsules. When you order online, use the discount code ColbyShow, COLBYSHOW, Colby Show, to save 15% off your online order at abotanicalcompany.com. Again, check out the website. It's easy to navigate. It looks outstanding. Easy and safe pickup as well in Midwest City, but 15% off your online order when you use the discount code ColbyShow at abotanicalcompany.com. Everybody stay safe. Have a great day, and I will talk to you tomorrow.
The podcast is over.